After achieving initial success in the south, Qin Shi Huang set his sights northward, determined to conquer the Wei River Valley and unify the states of Shaanxi and Shaanxi. Yet just as he consolidated his hold over the Guanzhong region, two powerful adversaries rose to challenge his supremacy: the rugged Kang people in the west and the fearsome Xiongnu Nomads in the north. To ensure the safety of his realm, King Zheng took it upon himself to lead a mighty campaign against these formidable foes. But despite the power of Qin, the nomadic Xiongnu proved to be a challenging adversary. Their cavalry would harass the settlers whenever they pleased, always staying just out of range of Qin forces. As time passed, King Zheng grew increasingly frustrated at his inability to defeat these elusive horsemen. In a desperate bid to find a solution, he turned to an old advisor named Lu Buwai for assistance. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Lu Buwai knew that he had to come up with a brilliant strategy to save Qin from the Xiongnu menace. He suggested to King Zheng that instead of trying to beat the nomads on their own terms, why not offer them a deal? Why not entice the Xiongnu nobles with riches and recognition if they agreed to stop attacking the Qin border? Although this idea went against everything that Qin stood for, Lu Buwai argued that it was necessary to buy time to develop the strength to deal with the nomads once and for all. Despite his misgivings, King Zheng agreed to try this bold approach. However, there was one thing he could never have foreseen: how personal this battle would become. Because when word spread of the massive influx of wealth into the Xiongnu camp, it attracted the attention of one man in particular, a young nobleman named Modu. Determined to prove himself, Modu hatched a plan to attack a local village near the Qin border, hoping to capture enough booty to win the favor of the Xiongnu king. And boy, was he successful. His raid garnered so much wealth and food that the Xiongnu king himself was impressed, and granted him noble status within their ranks. Soon, word of Modu's prowess reached the ears of King Zheng, who was furious. Now he realized that the Xiongnu were not just some backwards nomads, but had real military talent, a true rival for the title of conqueror of China. And thus, a fierce rivalry developed between the two leaders, each determined to outdo the other. One of Modu's greatest advantages was his skill in horseback riding. While the Qin army relied heavily on foot soldiers, the Xiongnu were masters of mounted warfare. Their horses were bigger and stronger than those of the Qin, and their riders were experts in archery and hand-to-hand combat. At first, King Zheng's forces seemed unstoppable, sweeping through the countryside and crushing the opposition. But then came the moment when the tables turned. During a clash near the Great Wall, the Xiongnu army caught the Qin off guard with their superior cavalry tactics. It was a humiliating defeat for the mighty Qin army, but they had underestimated their enemy. As the news of the Xiongnu victory spread, it became clear that this was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. From that moment on, the nomadic hordes roamed freely across the northern borders of Qin, leaving death and destruction in their wake. King Zheng was outraged. He knew that he had to do something to protect his people, so he assembled his most trusted generals and devised a plan to strike back at the heart of the Xiongnu Empire. Now let's take a look at both sides of this great war. On one side was the mighty Qin army, known throughout China for its discipline and ruthlessness. Led by the brilliant strategist Li Si, the Qin army was equipped with the latest weapons and armor and boasted some of the most experienced generals in the land. They were confident in their ability to crush the nomadic tribes and bring them to heel. But the Xiongnu were no pushovers. Led by the charismatic chieftain, Modu, the nomadic tribes were fierce and unrelenting. They were masters of guerrilla warfare and knew the vast plains of northern China like the back of their hands. Their cavalry was unmatched and their determination to defend their homeland was unwavering. As the two armies prepared to face off, the stage was set for an epic clash of cultures and a battle that would determine the fate of northern China. The Qin army, with its disciplined ranks and gleaming armor, charged into battle with the force of a battering ram. The Xiongnu, agile and swift, danced around the Qin formations, their bows and arrows raining down on the enemy. The clash of steel on steel echoed across the plains as swords and spears met in a deadly embrace. It was a brutal and bloody affair. Despite their ferocity, the Xiongnu were slowly being pushed back by the relentless Qin advance. But just when it seemed that the Qin would claim victory, a cunning move by Modu shifted the tide once again. With a battle cry that shook the heavens, Modu led a daring charge that broke through the Qin lines. The Xiongnu surged forward, their horses thundering across the battlefield, their arrows finding their marks with deadly accuracy. The Qin, caught off guard by the sudden attack, were thrown into chaos. Meanwhile, the Xiongnu army, led by the cunning Modu, was becoming increasingly bolder in their attacks. With each passing day, they ventured further into Qin territory, pillaging and plundering as they went. The Qin people suffered greatly under the onslaught. Their villages and farmsteads burned and destroyed. The once proud and mighty Qin army was on the defensive, struggling to hold back the tide of nomadic warriors. As the war dragged on, the Qin people grew weary of the constant attacks and the heavy taxes that were levied on them. To support the war effort, whispers of discontent began to spread throughout the empire, and many began to question the wisdom of King Zheng's policies. Meanwhile, the Xiongnu were growing in strength and confidence. With each victory, Modu's reputation as a military genius grew, and the other nomadic tribes rallied to his banner. Drawn to his charisma and military brilliance, it was clear to everyone that the war was reaching a turning point. The Qin army, led by the stoic General Meng Tian, was determined to make one last stand to defend their homeland. The battle was fierce and bloody, with both sides fighting with the strength of desperation. But in the end, it was the Qin who prevailed. General Meng Tian, with his years of military experience and tactical brilliance, had outmaneuvered the Xiongnu, trapping them in a deadly encirclement. As the dust settled and the cries of battle faded away, the Qin people emerged victorious. But their victory was not without cost. The war had taken a heavy toll on their economy, their infrastructure, and their people. The once mighty Qin army had been decimated, and the empire was left weakened and vulnerable. In the aftermath of the war, King Zheng took steps to secure his empire's northern borders. He ordered the construction of a series of defensive fortifications that would become known as the Great Wall of China. But despite these measures, the Xiongnu would continue to be a thorn in the side of the Qin dynasty, and the nomadic tribes would continue to raid into Chinese territory for centuries to come. The story of the Qin's war with the Xiongnu is a tale of two very different civilizations, clashing in a battle for supremacy. The Qin, with their advanced technology and sophisticated strategies, represented the pinnacle of Chinese civilization. The Xiongnu, with their untamed spirit and mastery of the natural world, embodied the freedom and adaptability of nomadic life. Through their clashes, we see the evolution of military tactics, the clash of cultures, and the resilience of the human spirit. In the end, the Qin's victory over the Xiongnu secured their dominance in northern China, but it also marked the beginning of a long and complicated relationship between the two civilizations. The war with the Xiongnu was one of the greatest challenges that the Qin faced during their rise to power, but it was also an opportunity for them to showcase their military prowess and strategic brilliance. By defeating the nomadic tribes, the Qin solidified their position as the dominant power in China and set the stage for the development of one of the world's greatest empires. What are your thoughts on the battle between the Qin and the Xiongnu? Which side do you think fought better, and why? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and subscribe for more exciting historical tales. See you next time.